Dan, you and I and the 6.5 attended HP Imagine 2024. We kicked off the week actually at the HP Garage, which is the birthplace of Silicon Valley. That's not something I made up. It's actually on the plaque in front of the HP founders' home and their lab. And we actually did recordings with the leadership team and the extended leadership team inside of Bill and Dave's garage. So it was really good. So thematically, some of the stuff that stood out for me, first and foremost, they're all in on work. HP does a lot of consumer and a lot of work, but they're doubling down on work. And that was Alex Cho's statement. A couple things there. So first and foremost, there are more profit dollars. So from a business perspective, this makes sense. And then when I look at the portfolio, including things like Polycom and commercial grade printers, this strategically makes sense to me. And then we add on to that the services that go along with that they're willing to pay for. I get it, and they want to drive share, right? So on AI, of course, we talked about AI and moving that forward, and this is in the context of the PC, workstations, printers, and more. A couple standouts for me. HP really leaned into an AMD commercial product, calling it the highest performance AI product that they have with 50 NPU tops. And they're swinging for the fences with AMD. HP has a lot of Intel, and they also announced a Lunar Lake consumer platform. But there just wasn't a whole lot of discussion about that. They were all in on commercial, and this was AMD. We'll have to see how AMD sells. AMD can sell in small business, but I don't feel like it sells even close to Intel. On the workstation side, what I really appreciate what the company is doing there, it's funny, we throw around this word solution, but what they've done is they've put together this end-to-end workflow for data scientists and developers, front-end and back-end developers. It's pretty cool. It even, interacts with Jupyter files, and think of all of the LLMs and SLMs, not that they're training, 400 billion, parameter LLMs, but when it comes to customization, when it comes to data management, you can very much do that on premises, right? When you see a developer kind of cranking out programs and manipulating data, these types of platforms. One of the biggest challenges right now is getting enough GPU performance. And they introduced a new feature called Boost. And Boost is essentially the ability for anybody in the work group to be able to share a GPU, even though they might not have it on their system. Try to get underneath the technology to try to figure out what's actually making this work. Like, is it virtualization like we see in the data center? Is it something different? Do you have to pin? Does the other user take 100% of the other workstation? I don't know these things, but I'm going to give HP the benefit of the doubt right now that this thing works, and it works well. So pretty cool. Like, Dan, you and I talk about GPU sharing in the data center and enterprise and hyperscaler. That's not easy, by the way. There had to be new technologies to figure out how to virtualize it, because it was typically on or off, 100% or not. Bestie back. And then let me talk about printer. We don't talk a lot about print on the show. Print is very much a large portion of HP's profit dollars. And they brought out a feature. It's so funny. I don't ever want to use social media play and interaction or views as the way to the only way to gauge interest. But I had a lot of people commenting on print. Well, what could HP have done to generate this interest? So I don't know. As long as I've printed LaserJet or inkjet beyond dot matrix, try to print a one-page spreadsheet and you get 17 sheets. And, row N is the final 10 pages. Or you're just trying to print a web page, you're trying to print off a map, maybe to give to somebody, or a recipe, or something like that, or a school project off a website, and you end up, getting the footer and the header and the right rail. They're all separate pages and it's ugly. Well, HP Print AI essentially takes a snapshot of what you think you want to print, and it asks you, are you sure you want to do this? You sure you want to do this? Also on the HTML pages, you can parse out ads, which is great stuff. Final, just to make a long story longer, Dave Shull got up there and talked about solutions and services, and this is more think managed services, right? Where let us do the driving. It does include service, but managed services is another, big revenue opportunity. Couple things below the BIOS type of services for remediation, online remediation, and finally managed room solutions. So think of Polycom, coming in and, instead of the hit rate being 50% when you walk into a conference room, imagine that being more like 75% or 90%. I'm making up these numbers. We haven't done the research or done an economic analysis behind this, but that's the thesis of what they're doing. Oh, you're muted, bestie.
Someone's car alarm was going off, so I had to go do a little triage real quick. Close the door. So I hope you saw my little note. But yeah, you covered a lot of ground there. And it was a really interesting event, Pat. And we did have a lot of fun. We hung out in the HP garage, oscillators and vacuum tubes. It was a wooden shed. It was probably the hottest day in the valley in a long time. So we were glistening. If you see Pat, little beads of sweat on his head as we talked to these executives, just know it was like 110 degrees inside that shed. But what was even hotter was the announcements, Pat. You and I, we've gone back and forth a bit about kind of how this next wave of AI devices plays out. I think we're starting to see in the real world how companies are adopting. We did hear a fairly prescriptive comment from Enrique Lora, CEO, who we sat down on the pod this week and talked to about commercial leading the way. So that was one of the interesting things here. We've been through about 2 decades of what I call consumerization, where consumer technology has really led to commercial, but we are right now seeing the first iteration. And why would that be, Pat? Well, it's efficiency, productivity. So companies are excited about this. 18-hour battery lives, more sustainable devices. Companies are excited about this. The potential for various agents and co-pilots to use an NPU to enable people to do private, secure work on their device. I think enterprises and companies are excited about this. I think consumers are sort of still looking for that killer app to some extent, that thing that's really going to drive. And battery life, of course, drives. But as you've seen generation to generation with iPhones, a new battery life and a slightly improved camera only can create so much enthusiasm. So people are really waiting for what those next things are. On the productivity and business side, though, Pat, there's some really great built-in capabilities in these new HP devices. I like some of the things they were doing with the AI production, for podcasters, video creators, being able to do with one person what feels like a 3-person crew, webinar, webcast, video, stream, very, very powerful. The AI director, you've got what AI can do for video conferencing, to be able to basically take 4 or 5 people in a one room together, but give them the same sort of screen equity So that unlike, in the past, Pat, where it's like one executive and 5 people in a room, and then you get, each person, you're kind of trying to figure out who's talking, depth of the room. You can't really read people's faces and emotions, which was cool for 2005 video conferencing. But in 2024, 5 video conferencing, we want each person to be represented. We want each person to be able to see them. And Pat, I don't know about you, but like when I'm on a video, I want to see their face. I want to see if they're sweating when I'm talking to them. I want to know that, I'm hitting the right buttons. That's how I get the reaction. That's how we close the business. So, that's kind of where where a couple of things in my head was at. I do really like, and I don't need to spend a lot of time doubling down because you covered this well. But look, sometimes, Pat, it's about basics. And the print thing, the AI print thing to me was like, I don't print a lot. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm an everyday printer. But I swear every time I print something, it's screwed up. It's like, oh, I wanted to print a web page really quickly because I wanted to look at something or read something. And it's like 19 pages for like one page. I wanted to just print a homepage image to look at something. Or, a spreadsheet, gosh, for sake. I want to actually like sit down and kind of maybe make some scribbles and notes on it, while I'm working. You always get that weird column Q that's on the next page, and it ends up printing 11 pages for that one column. Fixing that, Pat, is meaningful. By the way, it actually is useful from a utility and a cost and ink and everything else. It actually really adds up. So, some of these things you can call iterative, some of these things you could call breakthrough. But I thought it was a really encouraging event. The numbers will tell the rest of the story from here. And so how this innovation finds its way into business and ultimately into consumers is where we'll watch. Oh, and I like the GPU sharing. I think people are going to need to understand the application a bit better, but I like what they're doing there. I mean, this is all about utilizing horsepower. You got horsepower, use horsepower. So HP in this case, with that particular service, Pat, stands for horsepower. More AI horsepower.
No,
all right, that's it for me. That's all I got.
Yeah, so you can imagine somebody on a low-power notebook that doesn't have a discrete GPU who is going to tap into the GPU on the big workstation. That's kind of my expectation of what they're going to do. Kind of in a very similar. I mean, it's like a client-server relationship, And instead of it being a server in the data center or a server in the cloud, it's a giant HPZ workstation.